Okay, we're live. Welcome into the Four Verticals podcast, episode 131, here for last day of October 2025. High atop a dry and somewhat windy Jacksonville, Florida, tropical storm or now hurricane. I forget the storm's name. I know what the name looks like. I just don't remember how to pronounce it. But the hurricane off the coast, I think it's Idalia. That was a couple years ago. Um, no, whatever. Forget the name of the storm. It's off the coast now. It's not even coming here. It's pretty breezy up here. Some rain as well. But yeah, high top a dry and wind breezy Jacksonville, Florida. It's a Tuesday night special. How about that? Very rare Tuesday night special. Well, before recently, but nowadays it is kind of a thing we're doing now, I guess, once in a while. But that's okay. Um, but just as a note here, of course, we'll be going back to the regular schedule on Thursday and on Tuesday. So if I sound a bit discombobulated, that's kind of why. But yeah, so let me get to actually before we get fully started here, to make sure you guys can actually hear me on the YouTube side of things. Of course, we are doing the face cam officially now, so let me just double check here. So yeah, I'm gonna hear myself in the headset here, so hopefully it doesn't sound too jarring. I'm sure you guys should be able to hear me. I'll imagine. I know no one's tuning in live, but that's okay. Okay, guys can hear me. All right. That's fantastic. But yeah, of course, for this Four Verticals podcast, we have Week 6 predictions, conference races updates, races in terms of the battle for the conference and whatnot. Then we have the Bucs Eagles reaction, so a shorter show, and then yes, no Tuesday poll. We'll actually do that Wednesday, so it'll be the Tuesday poll, but for Wednesday, we're because of the schedule getting screwed up today. We have to move some stuff around, but that's okay. We'll continue to get things sort of corrected. We have to do this again, which is pretty likely. Not anything official, but I'm assuming we will have to do this again at some point. So I just put it out there. But yeah, so the Tuesday poll, we'll do that on Wednesday. I believe we're not behind on anything, I don't think, but we'll see. But yeah, we have conference races updates, and we also have Bucs Eagles reaction as well. So again, if you're new here, welcome in. We don't usually do these this late, at least live on YouTube and on Spotify. You'll see this after we're done going live as of recording this, but I usually do this around the afternoon time, Tuesdays and Thursdays. But again, as of recently, it seems to be a bit of a trend of us having to do these shows later, which is okay. That's fine. We can work with that. But not what we usually do. So it's a bit of a weird situation we've gotten ourselves into, but we can adapt. But if we have to, but it's all good. So let's get into the actual show here. Again, the show's all free, by the way, so you don't have to donate or anything like that. This is all completely free of charge. Again, since we are doing this in the evening, you can probably hear the sound machine. I don't know, for those of you in the comments on YouTube especially, is it bothersome with the sound machine in the background? I'm doing this to sort of blow out the noise. So I know we've done Monday shows before. We've had Monday Night Football on, and to avoid copyright. And so I wonder if anyone in the comments will bring that up. So for future reference, if it's bothersome, then we'll stop doing it. But anyway, yes, that's why that's on. Of course, you got the fan going. It does get hot here in the studio, my room. So anyway, yeah, Week 6 predictions. Got a lot of games to cover here. I think we have 3 games, I believe, 3 major games, and we'll do the rest in the upset alert segment and whatnot. Bama plays Vanderbilt, 3:30 on ABC. This is where College Game Day will be at. Hopefully, by the way, praying, fingers crossed here on YouTube, that James Spann, the meteorologist there, chief meteorologist over there at the ABC station there in Birmingham, please let him be the guest picker. That would be great. Hopefully that's the case. But, of course, knowing ESPN and Disney, they would much prefer to go a different route. But I'd love to have James Spann on there. He's been advocating for it. I kind of agree that'd be pretty cool to have him. I mean, he'll be at the game anyways. It's not like he'll be, that game day and then going back to the studio afterwards. So it's he'll be there. He'll be there doing the weather, I believe, at the Bryant-Denny Stadium. But Bama versus Vanderbilt. The line on this game, by the way, from FanDuel is a Bama minus 10.5. I believe that's not changed, so I should probably check that. Let's see here on FanDuel. I did this prep yesterday. Yep, still about the same. I'm 10.5. Of course, we know what happened last year with Bama going on the road and they lost and whatnot. And I think the question is, can Bama do it again, or at least can Vanderbilt do it again? They can do it. They have, let's see here, mobile quarterback, check. They have Clark Lee in that offense they run, check. Of course, Diego Pavia is back. They, for the most part, return a lot of their same production. So a lot of the cloth, if you will, of last year's game is still present. Now, only changes the venue. They're going to Tuscaloosa, not being in Nashville. So there's that. What I also can't get out of my head is what I saw from Bama last week against Georgia. Now, what's really funny is, and I agree with Josh Pitt, he was just on a little bit ago. That's why we were sort of waiting for his show to get done so we can get going here. I'm going to steal a line from him a little bit. It's interesting that with Bama after that, I just mentioned this yesterday on the recap video we did. It's interesting how Bama is going to sort of continue to package that Florida State game, and it's sort of put Bama into a different gear, if you will. It's sort of like kind of a booking something from them. And they have not looked the same since that game. Now, granted, they have not faced a mobile quarterback since then. Like, I mean, Gunnar Stockton can run, but he's not Diego Pavia, and he's not other quarterbacks still facing the future, I think. And it'd be interesting to see, was the Bama we saw on Saturday night against Georgia, no penalties, was very efficient on offense. Is that a trend, or was that just Kalen DeBoer he has that whole entire Nick Saban, defensive playbook figured out, which of course includes, Kirby, Dan Lanning, and the staff that Sark has in Austin. Is that the case? Is that just, a one-off thing, and then they come back against Vanderbilt and they look really sloppy, and it's, they could lose the game? Definitely on the table here. That's all on the table here, I think. And that's why that line of 10.5 seems a bit shocking to me. To be honest with you. And in fact, the college football nerds model is also pretty eye-popping as well. But that's one thing I wonder, too, is that, again, did they package that Florida State game and just say, you know what, that's not us. This is who we actually are? Could. That Georgia game could be a trend. It cannot be a trend. Then they come back on Saturday and they just look pathetic and they lose. That could also be the case. Not to mention the whole dynamics thing, but coming off a huge win, I guess we'll see if they can, if Kalen can get his team back again after failing to do so last year. I'm sure that staff there remembers that, and they're taking them seriously. And I just, by the way, too, imagine telling yourself that 10, 15 years ago. Of course, me being old enough to remember, when Vanderbilt was really, really bad, which is, well, technically not that long ago, but even going back 10, 15 years ago, when you'd face Vanderbilt, for the most part, no real threat, right? I mean, besides like the James Franklin era, and then maybe when they were, when game day came to Nashville for the Auburn game, I believe. Like, besides those years, you didn't really fear Vanderbilt. It was just kind of, they were just there. But now you do fear them. Now you do have the potential to lose to them, because it's already happened before, or it's already happened before with Bama. Auburn, by the way, Diego Pavia undefeated versus the city of Alabama. Does that continue? They've already beaten Virginia. They've already beaten South Carolina, a team that was highly ranked. Now they're ranked too. So that is also in play too with Vanderbilt. It's just that the fact that you have to respect them now is just the definition of insanity. It really is. So when picking this game, again, the quarterback thing, Ty Simpson and Diego Pavia, they'll get their yards, I think. They'll have their success. For me, I'm more concerned about the Bama defense. When I'm concerned, I'm curious. So I guess I don't expect Vanderbilt to hit a lot of big plays explosively through the air. I think Bama's secondary is still quite good. Even Florida State couldn't do that. Now, granted, you had a couple of different things going on with the Malzahn offense. The wheel route, by the way, it was like one big play they hit, pass play, the other one to a squirrel right. I don't know if Vanderbilt has the type of offense or offensive talent to do that. They could do it. They did last year, but I just wonder if that Bama secondary, year older, year wiser, does it happen again? And not to mention, is this Bama team sort of hitting a different gear now after the debacle in Tallahassee, speaking of Florida State. But when it really boils down to it, when I'm picking this game, I think home field's going to help here. I think it being in Tuscaloosa and not being in Nashville sort of helps a little bit, given the whole, Kalen DeBoer under Bama, the whole road struggle thing, and They've only had 2 wins on the road for the most part against their big teams this past weekend and against LSU. I'm going to pick Vanderbilt to win this game, but I'm going to pick Vanderbilt to cover. And the reason why is, well, I still don't know if what we saw last week from Bama is a trend in terms of this is how the team's going to be, this is how the team will be this year, or is it a trend of just he just has that whole Kirby Smart, Nick Saban defense figured out? I don't know. But the college football nerds model, by the way, they actually have. The reason why I said it was eyebrow raising earlier is they got the opposite team. They have the opposite team favored. Like, so they're saying that Vegas has the wrong team favored, which is Vanderbilt is, according to college football nerds, is a favorite by 2.8 points. So I have respect for their model, CFB nerds, Josh and Daniel. I'm going to pick Bama to win, but I think Vanderbilt does cover. I think there is still a sense of, I don't think Bama is truly, I don't know if last week was a real trend for this year. I just don't know. I think it could be, but we'll see. Next game here, very confusing game here. Texas on the road at Florida. I believe this is a 3:30 on ESPN. The FanDuel line is Texas minus 6.5. Interesting. Granted, this is on the road, which, in power rating world, that makes sense. Given how, when you list teams on neutral field favorability, this would make sense. This is an interesting game. But these are teams, and I, again, agree with Josh Pate, very much show teams that when they look at each other, they see themselves. Both teams are sort of inept on offense. Texas, for the most part, very much so inept. Yes, you can make the argument, well, they did face Ohio State week 1. Well, duh, yeah, I know that. But I did see the San Jose State game. And I also saw the, UTEP game. Offense didn't look good either there. So I know everyone will go, oh, well, they blew out, Sam Houston or whomever they played. I think it was some FCS team. I know Sam Houston's in FBS. So, yeah, I guess it was an FBS team now. But, still doesn't cure you of any of your offensive struggles. They're still there. When you're playing against high-level teams or at least decent teams. And even against the bad teams, you've struggled. So I don't trust you for the most part. At least I don't trust you to go on the road to Florida, even off a bye week, and be like, yeah, I figured to go into the swamp and beat them by 50 points. No, that's not going to happen. So that's why I question Texas, right? Their offensive line's not been that good. Defense is good, and that's where I expect them to show up. But I don't know about the offense, though. Just the receiver room has been kind of bleh. The running back room, been fine, but it's been okay. It's not, I guess, okay, fine, but it's not been great. But same with Florida, too. Florida and Texas, again, very similar. Abysmal offense, but kind of okay defense, kind of sneaky good. Florida. I feel with Florida, though, the interesting thing about them is that I have seen DJ Lagway play at a very high level before. That was last year. That was the 5-game or so winning streak that Florida went on to save Bill Napier's job. I've seen that before. I haven't seen it this year, so for the most part, DJ's been, kind of just bleh. And some of it could be, he hasn't played a lot of football. I've seen that before. I've seen that excuse being put out there, which is reasonable. I think the more reasonable, even more reasonable one is the fact that he's been hurt, right? He's been, hurt in the spring and the summer and fall. He was even, apparently in a walking boot, medical boot back in last week. So obviously the kid's made out of glass, but when he's fully healthy and he's not getting hit all the time, he's pretty good still. And I still think that's in him. I still think that version of DJ Lagway is still out there somewhere. I just don't know where it is. It could be over here, my desk somewhere, but it's still there somewhere. I think it's still in him that he can have a big, like a nuclear bomb going off. And that can happen Saturday. But the problem is, though, you're facing a even more sophisticated defense in Texas, even even after facing the likes of like Miami and LSU. Texas, to me, is the cream of the crop on defense, not offense, not a total team, but on defense in the SEC. For the most part, they are quite good. But I also have to consider that this game's in the swamp, and the first time they've been back there in a long time, about a month. Makes me and others wonder, could they harness some sort of magic here? Kind of like last year when they beat Ole Miss and LSU and all those teams and all those what people were thinking of as, well, guess Ole Miss, an all-time great favorite teams. They had to go on the road and face that, and they lost. Texas and Sark and all these guys will be going there for the first time in their lives. And I expect that place to be on fire, not literally, but just, atmosphere-wise, very oofed, and, a lot of fanfare and whatnot. I think the atmosphere there should be insane. I think a lot of folks will show up for that. So that also has me concerned for Texas. But as much as I say all that, as much as it sounds like I'm picking the Florida upset, I'm not going to. So here's what the CFP Nerds model has. They have Texas. So again, the FanDuel line, by the way, not a sponsor of the show, just an asset we use for research. I don't bet personally, but if you want to, you can. Which actually, well, FanDuel is not even available in the state I live in Florida, so that would be like DraftKings, I believe, but more Hard Rock bet. But anyway, I think most of the Vegas lines are about the same, I believe. I think that's how it works. So FanDuel minus 6.5 for Texas. Burp there. The CFP Nerds model has Texas minus 20.5. That seems a bit large for me, to be honest with you. I think that seems a bit I will pick Texas to win the game. I will pick UF to cover. I think this will be a very low-scoring game, and it will be a hard-fought game. But I think I can trust Texas defensively a little more than Florida. I think that's just me. I know a lot of folks. Listening to Josh Fade earlier, brought up the point about, a couple of points. One being that UF has not quit on Billy Napier. This year or they did last year, and that's true. But I kind of wonder, is the fact that you've seen this team struggle so much early in the year, just stumbling out of the gate, acting like they just, they didn't even have spring football or a spring or fall camp, and they start, catching themselves late in the year. Well, I don't know. I understand where Josh is coming from. I totally understand where he's coming from. And look, I even so point agree with him that, they haven't quit on him yet. Now, I kind of feel like towards the end of the LSU game, I think they kind of quit, especially that long run towards the end. But besides that, they haven't really quit on him at all yet, which is true. But I just wonder how much longer will those players stand for that now. As much as people can say Bill Napier is a nice guy and he's this and that, he's a good politician, I don't know. Now, the other thing Josh brought up is this theory that he proposed and actually came from the guys over at the Next Round Live. I believe it was Lance Hiller or Ryan Brown. One of the two brought up the sort of insane theory of prediction that Texas could be 3-2 while Oklahoma could be undefeated. I have it on Florida that Oklahoma will be undefeated because they play Kent State, God bless Kent, this weekend. I think they'll probably be massacred, even with Brian Hawkins Jr. at quarterback. Because remember, John Mateer's out for a little bit. But at Texas, it's not guaranteed they'll win Saturday, but it does seem like it's very possible that whole theory that Josh Pates talked about and the guys on the Next Round Live have talked about of Texas being 3-2 and then OU being undefeated. That's on the table. So I'm not counting that. I'm not discounting that whole prediction that those two entities made. Technically, Josh stole from them, kind of. I'm sorry, JP, but you kind of did. But, whatever. But, I think Texas will win. I think UF will cover. I expect it again to be a very competitive game. I'm not expecting a big blowout here. So there's that. Let's see here. Last game here. Been waiting for this one. Florida State, Miami. Huge game here. It's so big, I'm actually going to get some water real quick. And we'll be right back. I'm going to get myself on YouTube real quick. And by the way, the show's not over yet. We still have a long ways to go, obviously. But, Florida State, Miami. Still happy this rivalry's somewhat, I'm not saying it's back. It's never really gone away. But I'm glad there's more of a national interest on it now. Of course, this game is on ABC. Very rare, by the way. Non-SEC involved. ABC Saturday Night Football game. Christian Kirk will be there along with Holly Rowe. So glad this rivalry's back to at least a level of importance. I think this is the first time either team's been ranked since, I think, 2016 overall. That was in Hard Rock at the time. I believe this is the first time since, I believe, 2013. It was like a weird top 10 matchup. At least according to the people, I believe, right, the AP or the BCS back in 2013. That was, of course, the national championship year for Florida State. So this was the first time, I believe, since then that this game has been ranked on ranked matchup and tally. I think I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the case. This is a classic example of a team being in wounded animal mode, as they say, or in this case, Florida State, a wounded Seminole mode. A wounded Seminole. That didn't sound right. We try it again, third time. A wounded Seminole. There you go. Seminole. Yeah, wounded Seminole mode. Of course, we saw them last week, Florida State, get beat by Virginia. Of course, we had that on the upset alert meter, at least on we had it on the upset alert list. We had it in the code yellow category. But, we didn't really predict the upset. It happened. It was a fun game. Of course, Miami was off. By the way, Miami's schedule, by the way, very odd. Excuse me. They have Florida State this week. They were off last week. Then they're off again. And then they have, 7 or 8 straight games. It's like, okay. I know folks in the NFL world will tell you, well, NFL deal with it. Well, this is college football, and these are 18 and 24-year-olds. So, it's not totally professional and buttoned up as most of you think it should be. But, of course, I'm told this is what I wanted. So, anyway, so I think the interesting thing here for Florida State is, again, was the last week a trend? Was the last week a sort of a signal of things to come? And we don't know for sure, right? Same with Bama. We don't know for sure. But I do know this. I think them being at home, home field environment, college, they're not there, but the ABC game, it's a night game in Doak Campbell Stadium, first major night game for the new renovated version of it. I think a lot of folks here, and of course, I believe Elite Horse will be there too as well, and I think the Cover 3 guys, Danny, Bud, and all of them will be there. So that does help a little bit. It's home field, and just that extra oomph, if you will, to and they already so far proven atmosphere. Their offense has to start off fast. Against a very respectable Miami defense that I think to this point they have improved. They just need to get off to a fast start. Now, what's really interesting, I was listening to Bud, speaking of Cover 3, Bud and the Nolecast guys, brought this up today on their Virginia review about, I think, was it them or was it College Football Nerds? I listened to both. I think it was actually College Football Nerds. Actually, yeah, it was them, actually, not Nolecast. Listening to CFB Nerds, I think it was Daniel or Josh brought up that Castellanos, of course, he got hurt in that Kent State game. And their theory, I think they were speculating, or at least, that maybe he wasn't fully healthy, which is why, the offense seemed off a little bit. That wasn't the reason why they lost, but certainly a potential contributor. That's possible here. So I wonder if the health here could be an issue for him, because he's important to this game. I mean, him, obviously, you have Deuce Robinson, the wide receiver. Their running back staple is pretty good. I think they should get some yards. But I wonder if the health there with Tommy, because if he's not really healthy and have to put in, was it the Sperry kid, the freshman, this thing could very much so get off the rails pretty quickly. I'm just saying it, but it could very much so could. Another thing, too, is, Malzahn is a play caller, too. This will be the most sophisticated defense, I think, so far that he has faced since being at Florida State. It's been interesting to see how that looks. And then, again, going back to the Florida State defense from last week, wasn't very good. Again, is that a trend? Because, during the Bama game, of course, the argument you can make now is, well, Ty Simpson was, a starter. He was very nervous and, wasn't all there, which is true. Excuse me, it's true. And, of course, as people say, you get 12 versions of a team, or you get 12 versions of a team every single year, right? You have, 12 different versions of a team. So Florida State from week 1 was just one version of Florida State. Florida State week 2 was one version. Florida State last week was one version. Week before, one version. This week, there'll be a version of them. So it'll be interesting to see, is it more consistent with the previous ones before last week, or is it, a little bit different? I think for Miami, too, I think their key for them is Carson Beck. He will be the difference. I have no worries about the defense whatsoever. I think they're pretty good. I think Hefferman being there now has done a fantastic job. I'm not questioning either the lines of scrimmage either for Miami. Defensive line, O-line, best in the country. I think that's pretty clear. But I wonder about Carson Beck. This is the first time they're going on the road. And that really concerns me for Miami. It totally does concern me. The fact that he's on the road for the first time as Miami Hurricane. You've been the friendly confines of Hard Rock, which is, look, they've had a good atmosphere there, all things considered. it being a NFL venue, pretty good atmosphere. This is different. This is going on the road too. Again, I get it. It's a newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium, not what it used to be, even though it didn't really change that much. It's like the whole building's gone, or it's a whole new building. But you're on the road for the first time, and that worries me. You saw that before the State last week. They looked a bit rattled on the road. Could it be, Miami, struggle on the road, false starts, just weird things happening, what tends to happen with a college football team on the road, especially in a high-profile game. So I wonder about that for Carson Beck. Could he get rattled enough where there was a couple of turnovers, maybe an interception or a fumble or something like that? Or, again, maybe a crucial false start penalty or like a missed field goal or something. So, yeah, those things I'm looking at. So let's look at the CFB Nerds model. So the FanDuel number is Miami minus 4.5, and I think that's not changed that much. So, yeah, that's been about the same. Now the CFB Nerds model, it's about the same. I believe, yeah, just a point difference, right? I mean, it's Miami 4.4 minus 4.4, so around the same neighborhood. I want this so bad for Florida State. And look, Miami could totally win this game. Wouldn't surprise me. But I just can't go back to the whole wounded Seminole mode. Is this team sort of, going to package what happened last week and say, you know what, that isn't us. We're at home. Is it possible that Malzahn could be saving maybe some stuff, much like with the Bama game? I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm picking Florida State to win this game somehow, some way. I know that sounds crazy. I know a lot of folks are probably like, I'm picking Miami to win. No problem. I'm just saying, college football, especially with this year, at least when we have seen so far, very weird sport. And this game, by the way, if you were to compare it to last week, it seems very familiar, at least to me, to that ASU TCU game. And everyone was thinking, TCU undefeated, ASU, ASU won the game outright. So, hey, look, we predicted it. We did. Pointing at me here on YouTube. We predicted it. No one else did. Everyone else is picking, ASU or TCU to win the game pretty comfortably. Close my eyes again. I think it's because the lamp's right here in front of me. But, yeah, we picked ASU to win that game. So I feel very similar about this game. Something to me feels like the home team should have the advantage here, and that should be the difference here, I think. Also, again, doesn't help that this will be Miami's first time on the road. So, let me pull up something real quick here. Actually, it's already up, so how about that? Look back to my notes here. Actually, move these over real quick. Again, as we're stopping here, again, welcome to the show. If you're here live, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the streams and videos when we do those. Follow us on the podcast feed, Spotify, Twitter, X, whatnot. Again, this is all free. It's completely free of charge. No, Patreon page or anything like that. This is all free. None of this stuff is behind a paywall. Wouldn't do that to you guys. So, at least whenever do that to you guys. And I hate it when it shows that I get it. Have to make money somehow. But when it's something like this, a college football show, or a show that talks about college football, Marvel and Star Wars and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that should all be free and available to you guys. I don't think you should be behind a paywall or anything like that. Unless they're just that desperate. Conference title races, a lot of moving parts here. And of course, it's early enough in the season to where it's kind of hard to predict these, but I think it's for far along enough to where it's just a good refresher to see where things are in the standings, if you will. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through sort of the standings and go through all of the we're going to point out the top two teams and also point out other teams as well. So yeah, like for example, like when it comes to all of the conferences like the Power Four, especially when I do in the G5, we'll be just doing, looking at who are the top two teams and just, teams that would be playing in their conference title game if it happened today, which teams are still in the mix, if you will. Example, it's very early, but, just, not a bad thing to sort of get started on it, and we'll probably do another version of this segment again at some point. So, let's see here. We're going to go with here first. I guess we'll go with the ACC first. Why not just talk about Florida State? So yeah, the two top teams in the ACC right now, based on the standings right now. This is the standings. This is not me personally pointing this out, or at least not me ordering these teams. So if the ACC championship game, in Charlotte, if it were heard or held today, it would be Georgia Tech, who was 2-0, undefeated, versus, who do you think? Florida State? No, Miami. They haven't played a conference game yet. Florida State just lost one. It's the team they lost to, Virginia. Let me repeat myself. It's Georgia Tech versus Virginia. Now you may think to yourself, well, Virginia lost to NC State, right? They lost a conference game, right? Well, may surprise you. That was not a conference game. That was a non-conference game because I think some weird scheduling thing where it's like the two teams haven't played each other for a while, so they're just like, let's just schedule ourselves or a non-con. But technically, it's against a conference opponent. Same thing I think the Big 12 is running into. It's a conference opponent. Just you haven't played each other in a long time. Let's just do it. I think that's the reason why they're doing it. So, yeah, that is technically not a conference game, but yeah. So that's interesting footnote there. But they did lose that game, but since it's not a conference game, they're still undefeated. So beating Florida State was really a big help there for, or at least it was a big deal for Virginia and Tony Elliott and those guys. So Georgia Tech, Virginia, those two would be in the mix. Now the teams or at least they'll be there in Charlotte. Now teams in the mix here: Duke is undefeated still in the conference. Louisville undefeated in general. Cal, one loss. And non-con are undefeated in conference. Virginia Tech undefeated in conference. I don't know how much longer that'll last. Then you have your one-lossers. Your Syracuses, your Stanford somehow. Then you have your undefeateds like Miami, which have not played a conference game yet. And then you have the teams who haven't played one, but they've lost multiple games. Then you have the teams that are out of the mix, like Clemson, Boston College, Wake. But then you have teams like Florida State and Pitt. Still there. I think Florida State's a better team than Pitt, but how about that? Georgia Tech, Virginia, not Virginia Tech, Virginia Tech, or Virginia Tech, Virginia. But yeah, Georgia Tech, Virginia in the ACC championship game. It finished today. Crazy. Again, that's why we're doing this early, and we'll probably revisit this a couple of times, doing these little updates. So yeah, it's insane right now. If the regular season were to end right now, that'll be your ACC championship game. How about that? Let's see here. Big Ten. Right now, if the season were to end today, if we were going to do this in Indianapolis, I believe this year the network is CBS, I believe, and next year it'll be NBC. Would it be Oregon, who is 2-0, no shock there, in Indiana? Because they played two conference games, and they're both, they're combined 4-0 in conference. So they're the only ones who have played, or have at least played that many games so far. I think USC is the other outlier, too. I believe they've actually played more, 3. But yeah, so those are the top two teams. Obviously, the teams who are still in the mix, like Ohio State is in there. Illinois is in the mix. USC is still in the mix. Michigan is still in the mix as well. Penn State, even though they lost, they're still in it. Excuse me, I think they should be in the mix still. Then Nebraska too. But there's other teams like Rutgers and UCLA, Wisconsin. Obviously, they're not in it. But yeah, Big Ten so far. The season we're in today. Indiana, Oregon. How about that? Not in basketball, mind you. This will be in football. Also, by the way, a team that's sneakily still undefeated, Maryland. Undefeated. Haven't lost a game yet. Overall. That's kind of insane to think about. The team of Louisville's doing in the ACC. They're just kind of swimming around. Let's see here. More here. Big 12. We're just going alphabetically here. Big 12. The two teams here, if the season were to end today, two teams who will be playing in Dallas, I believe. Yeah. Dallas. Iowa State, no shocker, they're undefeated still, and Arizona State. One loss out of conference to Mississippi State, but they're undefeated because they beat TCU. Other teams in consideration here, BYU, Houston, quietly undefeated. All right, good for Willie Fritz and company. Great. Texas Tech too, but they've only played one conference game, so it's kind of a smaller sample size, but they're still in it. Cincinnati's still in it as well. They beat Kansas. Utah, Baylor, Kansas State somehow still in the mix. TCU as well, they're still in it. Not totally depending on them, but everyone else besides them is kind of dead in my opinion. But yeah, Houston just swimming around. Them and BYU just swimming around, still undefeated. And then finally in the SEC, which is still I still think it's going to be a total war more likely. It's a total insanity. Now, this is a bit odd because certain teams have only played one conference game and others haven't. So, for example, South Carolina and Ole Miss, they've already played 3 conference games, so they've had a head start. But if the season were to end today, it would be, the teams being in Atlanta would be Missouri and Ole Miss in Atlanta. Ole Miss has, obviously they played more games in the SEC. They're 3-0. Missouri, I think some of this is kind of based on head-to-head, so they'll be there. But all these teams, though, are still undefeated or one loss in the conference so far, are still in the mix here. It's like Bama, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, somehow, some ways in there. Amazing. Imagine telling yourself that 10 years ago. Georgia's still in the mix. Tennessee's still in the mix. The one-loss teams, LSU, Texas, they haven't played anyone yet. I think they're the only team so far, I believe, that's not played a conference game. They will this weekend. So all of those teams are still in the mix. But then you have like your Auburns, your Floridas, I guess technically Florida's still in it, kind of, but probably not. At least I don't think. Like your Auburns, your Kentuckys, your Arkansas, your South Carolinas, they're all gone. How about that, man? Just all those undefeated teams in conference so far. Texas A&M, Bama, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and then the team that's played all three of their conference games, won all of them, is Ole Miss. Granted, not the most difficult conference games besides LSU, but give them credit where credit is due. They are the highest-ranked SEC team right now. How about that? They are, the highest-ranked team in the SEC. They are the fourth best team according to the AP poll. Second best team, OU. So that is your conference, and then you have your independents like Notre Dame, but don't have one. Of course, we have your G5s and the Pac-12, RAP. Oregon State, man, how about that? 0 wins so far this year? What? It's not that insane, but just you'd imagine they would have won a game yet, or they would have won a game at some point, but no, not yet. Wanted to end on two things, and we'll get out of here. Again, more of a shorter show because we're doing this kind of late. Want to talk about Sam Pittman being fired from Arkansas. This is old news, so I'm not going to do the whole eulogy on his career, but at least the full version. But it sucks. I think Sam Pittman, generally a good guy, not a total jerk. Against someone that pretty fun. To go to a bar, and have a few drinks and hang out. But he's out. He did a lot of things for Arkansas that I think a lot of folks will kind of forget. I think. Given how it ended, right, sort of saving them after the Chad Morris era, and then now, here they are firing him. So, probably not going to be a head coach again. Maybe he'll be a O-line coach again at some point. Who knows? But as for Arkansas, where will it go? I know a lot of folks have different feelings on them. A lot of folks have, the thought of, to take the checks, take the losses program. It's, have to be one of those teams, in the SEC in particular, ditto for like South Carolina, Kentucky, Mississippi State, versus that they're the teams who just take the losses, right? They're there for that reason for the most part. They can have a good year once in a while, but not a consistent thing. At least they're not, consistent winners. But I'm going to sort of repeat what Josh Payne has said, and I kind of agree. That might be true, and it might be true that they're just take the checks, take the losses type team, but they still have power though. They have, the JB Hunt group, the intermodal, like the tractor trailer people, the Walmart family, Tyson Foods, all of them. They still have good corporate people that are willing to help them. Folks who are fans of the, athletics department. They've helped in basketball for the most part. Will they help in football? That's my question. And I think the question for everyone else is, will they help? Candidates, could be a lot of folks here. I grant you, the pool is kind of similar to Oklahoma State, but not totally the same. Of course, grant you Arkansas, probably a worse job than Oklahoma State, I think, just because of, location and given, the fact that Oklahoma State's in a much more obtainable conference than Arkansas is. But you're going to hear a lot of names for sure. Alex Glesh, Brett Lashley, of course, he's an Arkansas, well, not alone, but he played there for a little bit. Or he's from there too. Alex Glesh, good G5 name. John Sturmwell, probably not. I'd imagine he would wait for a bigger job like Auburn, which is looking more likely it's going to open. Like there will be a regime change there. So like him being considered being Lashley Galesh. I think you've heard a little bit of other coaches, other G5s, but one name that cannot escape my mind is John Gruden, right? John Gruden. I think Josh Pick touched on this months ago about when he, I believe, mentioned this. I believe either in an interview or when he went to, when he was at Georgia visiting Kirby, and he brought up that he's always wanted to coach in the SEC. Of course, the whole Tennessee thing, which most of that was for memes and whatnot, so it wasn't like really serious. But I think it's serious. I think John Gruden being a coach in college football next year after, seeing Belichick hop in and seeing other coaches from the NFL hop in, like Herb Edwards in the past, I don't think it's not insane to think about. Now, will it work and will it be necessarily like a clean operation? I don't know. But him being considered for any job, John Gruden's, he's just floating around there at, I believe, Barstool now, hanging out. It could happen. In fact, it's probably more likely that it's going to happen. So that's a name that's just kind of been floating out there a little bit. But, like Brett Lashley, Alex Kalesh, a couple other smaller names for sure to watch out. And, of course, you have the guy who's the current interim, someone of the name of Robert Petrino, who was once upon a time the former head coach at Arkansas. Now he's back. Technically the interim, but let's call it what it is. He is the head coach currently. So how about that? Circle's complete now. It's totally done now. So he went from getting fired from Arkansas, going all around college football and just college football in general, and now he's back. Where it all began, kind of, I guess. Or this whole cycle sort of began. Let's see here. So we're going to wrap up with this. Again, we'll do the Tuesday poll on Wednesday. We just didn't have any time to get it done, get it ready. But, Eagles-Bucs reaction. Of course, the Bucs fall 31-25. Like I mentioned on the preview, this was a game that was going to be a classic example of red life theory. When I talked about red life theory, I sort of mentioned that as the Bucs are, or at least the Bucs the first couple weeks, was sort of like when you're driving and you keep on running red lights, but you don't get caught because there's no cop around you. But eventually, when you continuously, run a red light, you're eventually going to get to an intersection where there'll be, whether a local police, state trooper, or whatever, you're going to get caught at some point. And Tampa got caught. Special teams was once again a disaster. It's becoming a trend. They had a punt blocked. I don't know. Granted, they did have that 65-yarder field goal, which was like the longest in NFL history outside, just shy of that Justin Tucker one versus the Lions. Which, look, I'll say this for McLaughlin, though. That was more impressive, though, than the Lions one or the Tucker Ravens one, because that was in a dome. But, but besides, that, the McLaughlin huge field goal, which no one's talking about for some reason, which, hey, look, that should be commended. But at least, besides that, I mean, special teams just a disaster again. It's becoming a trend, and unfortunately, it won't be the last, probably. Tampa, of course, got off to a very slow start. Defensively, it was off to a slow start. Though, we'll say I'll give Todd Bowles and company credit. They adjusted, and I think the offense got more rhythm in the second half. Of course, you had your two big plays, although they were not traditional order. They weren't plays that are sustainable. Like, for example, like the Emeka Ibuka touchdown, that was just a massive coverage breakdown from Philly. I think their rookie guy Mitchell was like way out of position, and Ibuka was just on YouTube right now. I'm just literally just waving him at Baker from the football, and he was wide open. So that's cool. That his little streak of scoring touchdowns just keeps on going. Probably gonna end at some point, but it's cool. But I mean that one and the past Bucky Irving, just that stuff not really sustainable, I don't think. But so them losing, I'm not surprised by. I thought that was gonna happen. Eventually, they were gonna get caught. They did, and now their reward is going on the road to Seattle. Clapping in sarcasm. Very excited for that game. But yeah, so another thing too I mentioned on Twitter that I'll mention here again is with the guys coming back, like the guys who were hurt before the season, Mike Evans will be back, I believe, in a couple weeks. Like Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs. Well, it wasn't that bad. Like, of course, Godwin still, look, he's not the same guy anymore. He's a lot slower now after two massive injuries. So him struggling a little bit, not surprising me. He had, 2 catches, I believe. Of course, Ibuka was the main guy. But I'll just say this with Wirfs. Well, he's really good, O-lineman. But I don't know, just him being on the O-line, just something felt off. I don't know, it was just the fact that those guys hadn't played with each other that much, or the fact that the lineup was reshuffled. But I don't know. I feel like when he came in, at least to this game, the O-line just felt to me a little bit worse, even with the injuries going on. So I don't know. Is that a trend? I don't know. But so their reward, again, they go on the road to Seattle to face the Seahawks in a late game on CBS. I believe that's Kevin Harlan and that crew. So, hey, at least they'll get an exciting announcer calling the game, but not totally looking forward to that game. More on that on Thursday. But, hey, at least you're going to be wearing your throwbacks, right? It's a throwback for both Tampa and Seattle. They're wearing their throwback uniform. So that's a cool uniform matchup, if you will. But, that's it for the show. We'll be back on Thursday. Normal time, not this late. Hopefully this will be the last time we'll do this again, but probably not before the year's over, but that's okay. It's doable. I'm not complaining. Just is what it is with the schedule sometimes. Of course, it's still being hurricane season. We could also have to move some stuff around as well. So just keep that in mind. Hurricane season has like a month, 2 months left, I believe, this month, October technically now, and after Thanksgiving. So still a long ways to go. But so far for Florida, pair of hands. We're doing pretty good so far. Got close though with this last system for the Caribbean or for the Bahamas, but only thing we got here was some like moderate rain and like a little bit breezy conditions. But so far so good. But so until Thursday, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday and Wednesday. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you on the next stream.